Digestive distress got you down? Join us as we dive deep into common digestive disorders with Dr. Tina Guerrero, a chiropractor and nutrition expert. Discover simple steps to improve your gut health and find relief. Let's get into it.
Do you know someone suffering from a digestive disorder or some other condition that flares up when they eat the wrong food? In today's episode of Health IQ, we will be visiting with Dr. Tina Guerrero, a chiropractor with a master's degree in nutrition. Our crew today is Joyce Runyon and Bobby Hockaday, and I am Brenda Bishop. Thank you, Tina, for joining us and coming back for another episode.
Well, thank you for having me.
Several months ago, we had you here for a discussion on foods that sort of heal, and that got into that whole thing about healing our gut.
Yes.
And we sort of just barely mentioned digestive disorders, so we thought it'd be good to bring you back and talk about some of those specific disorders and things that we can do and when we need help. So can you just get us started with some symptoms and what are some general information about digestive disorders?
Well, kind of to do a little refresher, digestive is from the mouth to the anus. So any disturbance through there, so it could be anything from heartburn, acid reflux, ulcers, ulcerative colitis, constipation, diarrhea, celiac disease, hemorrhoids, anything along that whole pathway can be considered a digestive disorder. And so there are, of course, the more severe the symptom, you want to go have it checked. If it's been an ongoing symptom, if it's just like you have constipation every once in a while, not a big deal. But if it's an ongoing situation, you should have it checked out. But there are some key simple things that you can do to kind of help your digestive system. One is to eat as whole foods as you can get, so stay away from as much processed foods. Another thing is to chew your food thoroughly. So most of us take a bite and we chew our food 2 or 3 times and then we swallow, which our teeth are designed to do the chewing and help break everything down. So when we only chew 2 or 3 times, then we're making the stomach do all the hard work of digestion, and the teeth should have done a good portion of that. So then that can put extra stress on the stomach, but then it gets backed up, and then it puts extra stress on the intestines, and it just progresses from there on through the system. So chewing your food is important. And a lot of people they're like, well, how many times should I chew or what should I chew? And fruits and vegetables should be in the 10 to 20 times before you swallow.
Oh, wow.
I know. And meat is upwards of 50 or 60
Oh my gosh.
times.
I don't know that I've ever chewed my meat that long. What about fish?
Well, and that would be the good point, because fish and chicken, because they are less tough, they're easier, so they're going to be closer down to the 20 or 30.
Okay.
And if your vegetables are cooked, you have to chew less because the cooking process obviously breaks that down as well.
So you were talking about from the mouth down, so like people who get hiccups?
Well, yes, hiccups can be.
When they're eating?
That's usually they've ate too fast, and so they've inhaled in a lot of oxygen while they're eating and comes up with hiccups. So that's technically, we don't look at that as a digestive concern, but it is from eating too fast typically.
Well, I've been trying to eat slower so I wouldn't get hiccups, but I have not been chewing my food like that. So I'll need to work on that.
I was going to say, start chewing your food. 1, it helps you slow down. 2, you don't eat as much, so people have lost weight just chewing their food. Second of all, it puts less stress on the digestive system, so the digestive system can work easier. Because when the stomach processes foods, it shoots out a teaspoon of food into the intestines at a time. And so it's a long process in the stomach. So it has to be broken down very thin to well, they call it chyme, and it's a mixture of your digestive juices with your food, but it's pretty much a liquid. And then it gets sent to the small intestines. For the small intestine, that's the bulk of where absorption occurs. So if you become nutrient deficient, it could be because you're just not chewing your food. So when it gets to the small intestines, the nutrients can't be processed because the food's still too
Oh, wow.
put together or too formed that it can't pull the nutrients out for absorption. So that can lead to some nutritional deficiencies. Or if it goes through too fast, if you're one of those people that tend to have like fast bowels where you're having loose stools, you can also become nutritional deficient because it's moving through the body too fast and you don't have time to absorb the nutrients. So in that instance, it's usually lack of fiber, and you've probably heard lots about fiber.
Yes.
Fiber is beneficial. It helps to slow down digestion, but it also helps to bulk the feces so that you have well-formed bowel movements so that you don't tend to go towards diarrhea. But then you don't want too much fiber either, which is that tricky space, because too much can cause constipation. So this is where you would have to keep your water intake up. And I say water because some of the other liquids like the sodas and things like that cause problems with digestion. So you want to stay away from those, keep your water intake up. And for fiber, you're wanting to look around 25 to 38 grams. Women closer to the 25 to 30, and men between 30 and 38 grams of fiber per day. So,
And that, that comes in two kinds of fiber. There's the soluble and the insoluble. So is it important to get more of one or the other?
And that kind of gets a little more complex. So, but yes, you need both, but they're both found in fruits and vegetables and your whole grains. But a lot of people tend to think fiber and they just think whole grains, but good fruits and vegetables also give you lots of fiber as well.
I know I have given myself some disorders sometime when I have eaten like too many fresh vegetables. Fresh green beans are my favorite, and I can really eat way too many of those. But so can you go through some of the specific disorders and maybe signs, symptoms, things that people need to be looking out for?
Okay. With heartburn, again, that's at the top of the list. That typically, it can be from overeating, but it can also be from eating too fast. It can be from eating too late. So all of those are simple things that can be adjusted. But then there's some people that it's an irritant, a food irritant. So spicy foods sometimes cause it, chocolate, or even like a lactose intolerance can cause some heartburn or different things. So if you have food allergies, you want to be aware of those, try to stay away from those so it decreases heartburn. Ulcers, that can be due to stress, but it can be also due to eating spicy foods and things like that. So again, you can keep your stress level down and again, watch what foods might irritate if you have a tendency towards ulcers.
So if you have maybe an ulcer caused by stress, but do you need to limit your spicy foods even then, or acid foods, or
if it irritates the ulcer? So some people it irritates and some people it doesn't. So it just kind of depends on
each person.
Each person, yes.
Okay.
When we move on into the small intestine, that's where we get into the celiac disease, and this is caused by excess gluten or a sensitivity to gluten. So gluten, you would avoid the wheats. Some places you got to avoid oats and barley just because they're manufactured in the same place typically. But the biggest one is wheat.
Well, and there's some seasonings that you don't think of as having wheat in them, or
yes,
things like that.
Yes, there are different yeast products that sometimes are wheat based, and so you have to.
I think if I remember right, soy sauce or something like that I would have never thought.
Yeah, well, and a lot of condiments, because they will thicken them with either a flour or a cornstarch or something like that. So those can lead to that inflammation as well. So cutting out your gluten or cutting your gluten way down will help with that. And then one of the nutrients that you can do to kind of help heal your gut when you are gluten sensitive is L-glutamine, and that just helps to decrease the inflammation in that small intestines. So from there, then we kind of move on into the large intestine, and this is where you can have diarrhea, constipation, colitis, Crohn's disease. So there's a whole lot more in the large intestine, and these are typically from lack of fiber, lack of water, lack of activity that gets the bowels that are really sluggish. And when the feces sets in there, it's not good for the bowels to just set in there. So you want to move those toxins out of the body. Otherwise, they will cause the lining to become irritated or inflamed. And then that's when you get like the ulcerative colitis. And diverticulitis is typically it can be from stress, but it can also be from irritants or allergies, like nuts and seeds you're to avoid when you have like diverticulitis.
I've known people who've had diverticulosis and they haven't been able to eat fiber. Our fibrous foods like pinto beans and things like that.
They have to limit. They still need the fiber. They just have to limit it, and they have to be careful of which one inflames them versus it might be beans for you, but it might be nuts for somebody else. So again, it's kind of individualized because you have to see what is affecting you or what you
so
can
maybe
do and
like
what you can't.
doing some food logs and paying attention to how you feel after you. Okay, I ate this today and this much, and oh my, this is what happened. And
yes,
so I don't do that, but I might try this.
But again, you have to kind of, with the food log, because by the time the food gets to the large intestine, it's a 3-day process.
Oh, wow.
So from the time you eat it to the time it hits your large intestine, it's 3 days. So when you start having an irritant in your large intestine, then you need to look at the last 3 days of what could it have been. So that can make it a little tricky. That you can do cutting foods in and out, and that's an easy thing that you can do at home. You can also have allergy food testing done that can show you, oh, well, you're showing allergic reactions to this, and it would help you to eliminate different areas of foods out of your system.
So allergic reactions will also help with the problems in your large intestine.
Mm-hmm.
Because you think about people whose mouths will break out or they get hives or something from foods that they eat, but I didn't think about.
But food sensitivities can cause loose stools, or can cause that inflammation where you get the bloated and the gas and build up like that from food sensitivities as well.
Wow.
And then that ends with kind of like hemorrhoids is the tail end of the digestive disorders, and that is usually from constipation. And that's from stress and strain and not going to the bathroom when you have to go. So if you have to go to the bathroom and you hold it, that is stressful for the body and it can lead to hemorrhoids. Women will typically get hemorrhoids giving birth, but that's from straining, from trying to push the baby out. But the biggest thing for hemorrhoids is keeping your bowels moving, which we're back to plenty of fluid, plenty of fiber, and plenty of exercise. And if you're doing all three of those, that will help the bowels move out quicker and easier.
Wow. That is a lot, lot to think about. But it all boils down to those few things.
Yes. There's some simple, like I said, the simple foods that going back to real foods and avoiding as many processed foods as possible will help your digestive system. Increasing water, fiber, and exercise are key for that.
And eating slow.
And
Super slow.
And chewing your food. You may get sore jaws from chewing, but it's important.
So, do you think digestive disorders are more common now, or is it just that we keep hearing things on TV and so we're more aware of?
Well, it could be both in the fact that they're doing more research, and of course they're trying to find new drugs to do different things to help with different situations. But there's a lot of chemicals like pesticides and herbicides that are on our foods. The fact that they're so processed anymore and that we're not eating real foods anymore. So we're having to digest all these chemicals in the processing that put extra stress on the digestive system as well, because your digestive system isn't designed to digest pesticides and herbicides and things like that.
Okay. Then there's a lot of that in our
Yes.
foods. So maybe because somebody may not have listened to our first podcast with you, can you real briefly talk about how you get your gut back healthy?
Okay.
I know that was a big portion, so you probably can't do it real fast, but you can always refer back to that episode.
Well, to keep your gut healthy, one, we've kind of touched on some of these, the fiber, the water, exercise, but keeping, as you get older, you don't make as many digestive enzymes. So taking a good digestive enzyme can help with digesting your food and making the nutrients more available. You've kind of thrown me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think it was the pre and probiotics.
Oh, okay.
And quality protein, if I remember correctly.
So yes, your pre and probiotics. So that would be like your fermented foods to give you, and these are your good fermented foods, not like grocery store pickles, but like pickles how grandma used to make. So the fermentation process, same with sauerkraut, good yogurt. You don't want it high in sugar. And then kefir or kombucha, different things like that are fermented foods. That helps to build the good bacteria in your gut so that you are processing things better and digesting things better.
So if you didn't want to experiment with making your own kombucha, is the bottled stuff okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
For the most part, I have not found any of the bottled kombucha as got toxic stuff in it or added pollutants, so to speak, in it.
Okay.
They tend to be just the fermented tea or the fermented juice that is part of the processing for it. So
Cool. So we have I've several food for thoughts, but I thought you talked about several things, but this one of the fastest way to improve our health is to eat slowly. And you've said that several times, so I thought we should re-emphasize that. Chewing your meat 50 chews. Wow. And vegetables at least 20 chews, along with fish. I'm not even sure my fish would hold up to 20 chews.
And that's okay. But in Asia, one of the Chinese proverbs is drink your foods and eat your liquids. So if you're chewing your food till it's a liquid in your mouth and then swallowing it, you've chewed it very well. And then don't guzzle your drink with your meal because that dilutes your stomach acid. So just sip on your drink. So that, if you can remember that Chinese proverb of, so drink your foods, eat your liquid.
Some of the mindful eating stuff and diet stuff say to drink, 8 ounces of water before you start your meal. Will that dilute?
That will dilute, but drinking it before your meal, you haven't really started, you've started a little bit of your digestive enzymes, but because you're not eating at that point, it will dilute those and kind of move them on through the digestive system. But whenever you're eating, you don't want to drink lots of fluid during your meal because it will dilute your digestive enzymes, specifically in the stomach.
I noticed that I was getting hiccups because I was drinking a lot while I was eating. So I have stopped doing that. So I can see how that can help. But I think it's just really important that we all just remember to eat slowly, chew our food, and that will fit that food for thought, their proverb. So this has been a fascinating discussion. We all need to take steps to improve our diets and health, exercise more, and chew slow. Thank you, Dr. Tina, for joining us today. If someone needs to speak with you about their diet, is there a way they can get a hold of you?
And they can call the office at 575-282-2222.
And ask for an appointment with Dr. Tina. Yeah. Because there's several people in there, so make sure you ask for that. Thank you guys for joining us today as we explore digestive disorders. Come back for our next episode, which we will have another compelling topic to be healthier.
Special thanks to our guest contributor for this episode, Dr. Tina Guerrero, D.C. Our host was Brenda Bishop. Health IQ Podcast is executive produced by Brenda Bishop, directed by Robert F. Hockaday, produced by Robert F. Hockaday and Joyce Runyon, with additional camera support from Joyce Runyon, edited by Robert F. Hockaday. Select music provided by David Morris.
This podcast was made possible by a New Mexico Department of Health Better Together grant. Additional information about today's topic will be on the Health IQ blog located on the Quay County Health Council's website at www.qchealthcouncil.org. Be sure to follow the Quay County Health Council on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Quay County Health.
This podcast was created solely for educational purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for advice from a healthcare or mental health professional.